Every time there is a new birth, there is a child released into the world, there is a new angel brought forth or released with that child. God allocates an angel to every newborn child entering into the world. So every time a child enters a family, it is a new angel allocated to that family. And that is why the way we raise our children is very, very important to God, because there is an angel on supervision. And Jesus himself says that there is an access those kind of angels have. The angels allocated to children report to the Father directly. They report to the Father day and night. They appear before the Father face to face. They do not need to go through any protocol to appear before the Father with their reports and all of that. So it's a very key thing. Now, every single child that comes into the world with an assignment comes with one of such angels. For instance, John the Baptist, when he was entering the world, came with an angel. There's an allocation of the ministering spirit, which is an angel that was supposed to be over and for the ministry of John the Baptist. Now, that angel that was allocated to the life of John the Baptist was a recycling. God can sometimes recycle an angel for the need of the similarity of the assignment that angel holds with the one he has done before. For instance, the particular angel that was allocated to John the Baptist was the same angel that was allocated to Elijah the Tishbite, which was of the inhabitants of Gilead, that came from Gilead. Now, Elijah the Tishbite had an angel that was over and for his ministry. Now, that was the same angel that was allocated to the life of John the Baptist. Now, this is because John the Baptist was coming to address about the same kind of issues that Elijah was born and raised by God to tackle in his generation. For instance, Elijah's dispensation was to settle a national misbehavior by leaders of the nation, which were inclusive of principally Ahab and Jezebel, and of course the prophets of Baal that were their subsidiaries. Now, Ahab, God needed to raise Elijah to address the misbehavior of Ahab and his wife Jezebel. In the same vein, God brought Elijah in the dispensation of Herod, King Herod, that was also around misbehaving as a national leader. He was also misbehaving very, very cruelly, such that he could take his own brother's wife, murder his brother, take his brother's wife. And John the Baptist was to address in the same spirit with which Elijah dealt with the matter of Ahab and Jezebel. John the Baptist was to deal with the matter of Herodias and Herod. Now, but the issue is, John the Baptist was a man that was a bit different from Elijah. And the reason why I think John the Baptist was a bit different from Elijah was that Elijah was a man in whose dispensation he needed to mobilize all that God has put in him, use every bit of it to every degree needed to be able to accomplish the task in his days, such that he needed to do a lot of miracles. He needed to command and declare a lot of a lot of things over the weather, over time. He needed to take a lot of authority over a lot of issues. Now, but John the Baptist was a man of core causes. Elijah was a man of core causes, electives, and all of that. John the Baptist was a man of core causes, only core causes. That man was not interested in electives. He was not interested in doing this and that here and there. Such a humble man, such a humble man. No wonder Jesus made a very remarkable statement about him. Now you know that John the Baptist was a man who knows God had spoken to him, and he knew the reason he came. He said that when the one who spoke to me said, he upon whom I would see, you will see the Spirit descending and dwell. It is he. Just announce him and return back home. For John the Baptist, it was deliver the message, do the work, and return home. The same way Elijah finished and returned home. Elijah was in fact, Elijah didn't even completely he was not interested in staying too long. Same way John the Baptist was not too interested in staying too long. You know, all that John the Baptist was meant and born to do, and was allotted the power and the spirit that walked with Elijah to do in his days, was to come, fish out the Messiah, identify the Christ, announce him, and then decrease thereafter and return back home. Now that was all John the Baptist was born to do with his life, and that was all he did. And you would know that somebody would imagine that with all the miracles, closing the heavens and shutting up the rains, calling fire from heaven to consume a waterlogged wood, a set of woods on the altar, wood that was drained with water, that was baited with water, and commanding fire to lick it up and dry it up, and slaughtering the prophets of Baal, overtaking the chariots of Ahab, all the havoc and all the great, awesome and mighty things Elijah did, commanding soldiers, commanding armies of 50s and all of that, for fire to come down and consume and all that. Now you would imagine that such a man, he did more than John the Baptist now. But I was baffled by the commendation and the very statement of Jesus concerning John the Baptist. He said, of all that were born of a woman, there is none greater than John the Baptist. There is none of all the prophets, Isaiah, prophet Jeremiah, the prophet Elijah, whose spirit was recycled for John the Baptist to work with in his dispensation as the need was. The truth is that John the Baptist, according to the words of Jesus, that is also the judge of all things, it was that Jesus said none of these other men were as great as John the Baptist, or greater than John the Baptist. That is, the man had reached the benchmark of human greatness, of attained human greatness so far. Now that makes a lot of meaning in the spirit. It means that simply accomplishing the core course of what God brought you to do is what will determine your score, not an elective. Not an elective. Not fringe benefits. It is the core that determines the score. Now, noticing that all that John the Baptist was born to do with his life was to announce Christ. He was the only one of all the prophets giving the honor. Others prophesied about Christ, but he presented Christ. Others prophesied of Christ, but he presented Christ. There is a big difference between the presenter and the prophesier. This is not the same. Jesus himself knew that all that John the Baptist came for was to announce him, decrease, and return home. He decreased until he entered the earth and returned back home. Now, this is the core. So, John the Baptist, all he wanted to do was to accomplish the very core of what God had brought him to do. So Jesus said he was greater than all the prophets, because none of the other prophets were given the honor of presenting him. You know, when you go to an important occasion of dignitaries, it is the man with the greatest honor that is given the honor of presenting the greatest person in the event, the biggest person in that event. It is the man with the greatest honor that is usually given the privilege of presenting him. That was who John the Baptist was. He was given the privilege of presenting he who was the head of all things. I think that it's a very sensitive matter. May the Lord grant us understanding.